Do you remember the Magic School Bus? It's a show that I think anyone has some memory of, either that time a teacher played it in class, or maybe that one episode that always just stuck out. And well, I also have a core memory with this show, being that I always felt really bad for Arnold. He just didn't want to go, and from what I remember in school, you didn't have to go on any field trip, you more actually had to get permission to go on them, which Miss Frizzle is doing the opposite of by hiding from the parents and the principal. And well, after thinking back on that, I got an itch, a strange, unnerving feeling that I couldn't stop no matter how much I tried to ignore it. Why was Miss Frizzle forcing these kids on these field trips? Why was Miss Frizzle hiding them? And who is Miss Frizzle? And then I found it. After connecting every dot the show threw out, every plot hole this bus drove over, I found a conspiracy that spans generations of Frizzles, all feeding on the minds of the adventurous and curious. Buckle your seatbelts and get ready, because this isn't gonna be a normal field trip. Miss Frizzle is a criminal. Now, you obviously know this, as how could she not be? The woman has committed crimes from kidnapping to child endangerment to attempted murder, basically, and also has most likely become an enemy of many real-world countries, being that she definitely does not have legal permission to fly over North Korea. The woman has most likely done things that have created new crimes for her, like messing with our timeline multiple times. So my question is, how has she not been arrested? Why is Miss Frizzle an elementary school teacher and not a prisoner on death row? Even just not telling the parents or the school about field trips and using her own vehicle is very illegal. So this leads us to two questions. How has she not been caught? And two, why is Miss Frizzle even doing any of these things? Well, for one, the show does give us a few ways we can explain how she's not been caught, being that A, Miss Frizzle has magic and uses it to our benefit, and B, in the sequel series, we learn that at the very least, Miss Frizzle's sister, when teaching the class, just asked the parents for permission, but they assume it's a joke. Now, you may of course be confused why Miss Frizzle's sister is also teaching these children, but I'll get to that. Now, in my opinion, we can kind of just say these are the reasons she hasn't been caught, being magic and cartoon-like explanations that no real-world adult would believe, but in universe, I could maybe see it. But that doesn't explain why she does this. Why is this infinitely powerful being with a magical reality warping bus being a school teacher for the same class of 8 students and taking them on field trips on the daily? Now, at first, I was gonna say, she just really likes teaching. She loves learning, and so what if she's an eldritch magical being? She can settle down and be a teacher. But if she does really love learning, being a teacher, and you assume care for these kids, why does she take them on such dangerous adventures? Field trips that don't just sometimes end in death, but sometimes just do. Arnold literally dies in the first episode, and while yes, he comes back, the next episode of the show has a very weird focus on Arnold being strange and feeling different. There is obviously something going on here. But what? What is Miss Frizzle getting from these kids? And who is Miss Frizzle? Let me explain. Valerie Frizzle is the name of Miss Frizzle, a name that feels very strange. Frizzle, frizz, like her hair. That doesn't make sense. Your last name is usually not based on a physical attribute. Now at first, you could go, well, her name must be fake. Alex Bale claimed that. But if you look at a Miss Frizzle, you'll find the history of other Frizzles. And I don't just mean a mother and maybe a father or even a few siblings. I mean a literal pantheon of family members, all having curly hair and seemingly magic. Miss Frizzle has a mother who only appears in the books, but noticeably has a pet cat, just like Miss Frizzle with her pet lizard. Now, Miss Frizzle's sister, Fiona Frizzle, is where things get really interesting. See, she appears as the main character of the sequel show, Magic School Bus Ride Again, because Miss Frizzle retires and becomes, well, whatever she wants to be. Now, when the new Miss Frizzle, who I'll just call Fiona, takes over, we learn some things about the Frizzles as a family. A, she is way more open about being magical magical. She literally appears to have mind-reading abilities, like knowing exactly what the students are thinking, or just knowing what they're doing even when she's sleeping. But also, in a certain episode, her mind is split into 3 different versions of themselves that when put together, give her the ability to create duplicates of themselves called the Frizzle fragments. No, I'm not joking. Another important note is that there's never an appearance of a male Frizzle in the show. Now, we do hear about them, but it's always my great 55 more great uncle did this thing from Miss Frizzle. That was just something I noticed but couldn't really find a reason for. Now, she of course has many more family members, like at least 10 cousins and then like 10 aunts, plus some uncles too, but most don't matter. But there is one who does. Redbeard the pirate, her great plus 13 more great grandfather. This man is very important to understanding what is going on with Miss Frizzle and her family. It's said that Redbeard the pirate had a tradition of bringing on a group of adventurous, curious people on his magical pirate ship, and of course also had a pet parrot. That sounds kinda familiar. Similar to Miss Frizzle, bringing on a group of curious people on our magical school bus. The woman who you also know has a lizard, like a parrot. Okay, what does this mean? There's obviously something here, but what? Well, we have 3 things. It seems the Frizzle family has a tradition of taking on a group of curious people on adventures, having a magical vehicle, and even a pet animal. This makes me think one thing. The Frizzle family is a family of witches. But not just any witch, no. This family has a very specific relationship with where it gets its power and how it channels it. Which is also why Liz, for example, does seem way more magical than not, and obviously is way more intelligent than some random lizard. Now, for Miss Frizzle, we can find the things she seems to channel her magic through, like her outfits or the bus. It definitely seems like she can't do the same things the bus can with her magic, but she definitely has some weird abilities, like seemingly knowing everything, and based on her sister, mind reading. Now, the most important part of her that separates her from some random, generic witch is where she gets her magic. It seems her family has some sort of relationship between the curiosity a person generates when on a new adventure and their magic. But it also doesn't seem that simple. No, there's something here that's deeper. Something I think I may have found. Let me explain. This is the loop of your average magical school bus adventure. The kids are doing whatever in class. The Miss Frizzle walks in wearing some strange outfit that gets the kids curious about some topic like electricity or light. Then her earrings will glow, which signals the idea to the audience that the start of the adventure has begun. Then she'll snap her fingers, say some catchy phrase, then take the kids on the field trip that they think they started themselves by asking said questions. Throughout the entire adventure, the kids get curious and ask questions that seem to fuel the bus in some way, but they also many times end up in life-threatening dangerous situations that Miss Frizzle lets them get into, only at the end finally saving them. She herself also never shows fear. Then to figure out what element of the cycle is giving Miss Frizzle power, we need to connect it to her pirate grandfather. We know he took a gang of adventurous, curious people on crazy adventures in the sea. While that may be all we know, we can infer a lot about it. Of course, the curious element is very important, along with something about taking people on experiences that they haven't experienced, as Miss Frizzle doesn't repeat field trips. There's also the fact that every field trip, and you would assume pirate adventure, is very dangerous, sometimes resulting in death, even if the bus can mostly revive people, where according to Alex Bale, create clones, which I personally do like as a theory, and in this theory we'll say Miss Frizzle could be doing. Now, what does the connection of Miss Frizzle's power and this cycle have? Well, curiosity based on new things that are usually prompted from questions, and also possibly a second power source derived from the fear created by near-death experiences. Both these things seem to power Miss Frizzle, curiosity and fear. If you acknowledge that both these things working together give her all this magic, things make so much sense. It's why Arnold is forced into these field trips, because he fears her and that gives her power. He doesn't need to enjoy them. The basic sense of fear he feels towards towards them, towards death itself, is just enough. It's why after he dies and maybe comes back as a clone, or maybe he's revived, he feels weird, because Miss Frizzle drained him for her magic. This also explains why Miss Frizzle is an elementary school teacher. She simply realizes family tradition of throwing power on people who are very curious, but also very easily scared and killed, works the best on children. Now, it doesn't explain necessarily how she only does it with the same 8 kids, but maybe there's some form of weird connection between using the same people and her magic. That's a question I want to answer, but can't seem to find one. I also am really interested in 2 other things, being how her family has these powers in the first place, and B, why she needs to do any of it in the first place. In the end, we only really see her doing the act of getting these powers, and she uses them through her school bus to continue to get them. We never see her feast on the benefits of collecting all this magical energy, so why is she doing it? Well, I think these 2 questions are connected, because I don't believe this is just a family of witches who use magic through some weird vehicle. I think it's a family of a cursed single human being reincarnated over and over as they are tortured through generations by the same eldritch horror demon masquerading as a school bus. Don't believe me? Let me explain. Okay, now first things first, we need to fix the immediate plot holes this idea creates. Point A, I just established a lot of living relatives of Miss Frizzle. So, how are they alive when she's alive if she's the reincarnation? Well, for one, her parents and her niece, and really everyone but her sister, are all found in the books, which are only half canon, where they aren't really canon, but ideas can be found useful from them. So simply, the actual interactions between Miss Frizzle and unnamed Mother Frizzle just didn't happen in the show universe, which we are theorizing on. Point solved. But sadly, we still got her very much alive in show sister, Fiona, who was the main character of the sequel series. Now, here's my theory. Miss Frizzle cloned herself, creating Fiona as a new teacher she could use to keep her favorite special class of students occupied and still under her wing to some extent, while she could go out and do whatever she wants. We already have proof cloning and doppelgangers exist, thanks to Alex Bale, and we even have proof Fiona isn't just another Frizzle, as her hair is especially not very frizzy. Plus, she doesn't even have a lot of the traits Miss Frizzle has, like the drastic familiar pet, but she does have the bus, which in this theory is some sort of curse on some person who at this point could be thousands of years old, who is reincarnated and being forced to feed this magic demon bus. This is my true theory. Miss Frizzle and the Frizzle reincarnation cycle is not a relationship where she is the benefiter. She is getting magic, sure, but only to feed the bus, to feed the true eldritch demon that attached itself to this poor frizzled family. Now, of course, you're probably still going, okay, sure, but like, where's the proof she's reincarnating and is the same person? Well, this is Miss Frizzle. Just simply put, that is her face, her frizzly hair, and her on a sunken ship, which would have to be very old. It also just, in my opinion, solves why she's so smart and knows everything about every topic and has every connection because she's existed for so long. This is the true magic school bus theory. The Frizzle is a reincarnating cycle of witches in an eldritch pack with their demon vehicle lord, forced to feed them the magic energy created by the culmination of curiosity and fear, a cycle which Miss Frizzle has been trying to break for thousands of years, and finally, through the help of cloning technology, may have somehow tricked the bus and given the curse to another, finally able to live her life free of this torment. But there are still more questions left to answer. Why did the bus choose Miss Frizzle? Or even, what is the bus? An alien? An eldritch fourth dimensional god? Or why does Miss Frizzle need the same 8 students? These are sadly questions I can't answer in this video, but if you have an idea, leave it in the comments and I will make a sequel that solves every question that this bus creates. In the meantime, I think you'll love my theory on Curious George, as he is also very curious. Either way, bye!